So today we're going to do the part D of section 4.3. Today we're going to be writing equations of an ellipse. So on Friday we covered the 4.3c. We learned about the different parts of the ellipse. Sometimes your ellipse will be longer horizontally and other times it'll be longer vertically. You were calculating vertices, co-vertices, focus point, and a center point. Now these pictures all have the center at 0, 0. Here are the formulas when you're for your center at 0, 0. Also remember, when we get to the part in the notes, we're going to need this information. So they're going to give us a length of a major axis. So if I tell you the major axis is 10, you set 2a equal to 10, and that'll give you your a value. Minor axis length will be set equal to 2b, and we're going to be using this part of the notes when we're writing the equations. And then we just did some examples. So 1 through 4 were all examples of finding the parts and graphing them. Also in the web assigned homework of the 4.3c, it also asks you to find the eccentricity of an ellipse, which is just the ovalness, and you just had to take your c value and put it over a. So now we're going to be finding the equation. So just like before with the parabolas, I highly recommend that you give yourself a visual. So I'm going to go ahead and graph what they gave me. So they gave me the center point of 0, 0, and then they gave me the 2 focus points. So it was the order pair 0, 3 and 0, -3. So these are my 2 focus points or foci. So I'll put one here and here. Now, whenever your center is at 0, 0, then you can find either your A or your C value depending on what's given to you. So when you're given the focus and the center is at 0, 0, then we know that in this order pair, this is just plus and minus C. Now, another way I can find my C value is to figure out how far away is my center from my focus point. And that's your C value. So C is the distance from the center to the focus. And I can just count, and there's actually 3 spaces. But again, if you looked at your order pair that was given to you, you could also have gotten the C value right from there. So the next thing that they gave me is that the major axis length is equal to 8. So back on slide number 3, I told you to pay attention that the major axis length was always equal to 2 times a. So I'm going to take 2a and set it equal to 8. I'm going to divide by 2, and my a value is 4. Now, when your focus points or your 2 vertices are on top of each other or up and down, we can see here that our graph is going to be vertical. So what I need to do is figure out the standard form when the center is at 0, 0. The equation I'm going to fill in is x squared over b squared, y squared over a squared equals 1. So because my focus points were on top of each other, they're on that y-axis, the a squared is always the bigger number, and it's under the major axis. And my major axis is vertical, so it's under y. So now I'm going to take the 2 numbers I have. My a, I need to square that 4. So a squared is 4. All I'm filling in is my a squared and my b squared. Now, I don't have any information about b, but I have a and c, so I can use c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Fill in the c squared. So c was 3, so c squared is 9. And that set that equal to 16. 4 squared is 16, not 4. So let me fix this. So fill this in with a 16 minus b squared. And this is what I'm solving for. So I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. Negative 7 equals negative b squared. I don't want a negative b squared, so divide by negative 1. And 7 is equal to b squared. I don't need to square root it because remember, this is what I need to fill in. And then I'm also filling in my a squared, which is the 16. So my equation is going to be x squared over 7 plus y squared over 16 equals 1. And that's my equation in standard form when my center is at 0, 0. So for the next one, let's graph what they gave us. So I've got a center at 0, 0. I've got a focus point at negative 2, 0, and 2, 0. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Notice this time my focus points are on the x-axis, so my graph is going to be horizontal. So the equation that I'm going to be filling in is x squared with a squared underneath it, because that's where my focus points are located, on the x-axis. So now, again, if your center's at 0, 0, this focus point is plus and minus c, 0. My vertices, here is plus and minus a. So for the vertices, plus and minus a, 0. But I can go ahead and graph them. Give yourself the visual. So again, if you recognize that the a value is 3, just from the order pair, and the c value is 2, then you don't have to count how many spaces away it is. Because again, remember, your c value is how far away is that center from the focus, and it's 2 spaces away. And then the number of spaces away the vertex is from the center is going to be your a value, and it's 3 spaces. So now remember, all we're looking to fill in is a squared and b squared. So if I square the 3, a squared is 9. So I'll be able to put that right here, but I need to still find the b squared. So I'm going to use my formula again of c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Fill in the a and the c. So c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Fill in a squared, which is 9. Fill in c squared, which is 2 squared, which is 4. And then subtract the 9. Negative 5 equals negative b squared. Divide by negative 1. And b squared equals 5. I don't need to square root it because, again, remember what you're filling in is b squared. So now let's fill in a squared and b squared, and we're done. So x squared over 9 plus y squared over 5 equals 1. Remember, a squared is always the biggest number. And when I graphed it, you could see that it was horizontal, so you knew the bigger number needed to be under x squared. So for the next one, again, let's give ourselves the visual. So my vertices are going to be at positive and negative 5 on the y-axis. So I have a vertice right here and right here. These are the vertices. And then it says it's passing through the order pair 4, 2. So this order pair 4, 2 is my x and my y. Now, I can find my center point by seeing that it's right here. It's going to be the midpoint of those 2 vertices. So my a value is how far away the vertices are from the center. And you can see your a value is 5. Again, this is 0, comma, plus or minus a. So the a value is 5. So my a squared is 25. Now notice this time I don't know anything about c or b, but I have an x and a y value. Now as soon as I saw that my vertices were on top of each other, this told me that my a squared was going to be under the y squared. So the equation I'm going to be filling in is x squared over b squared plus y squared over a squared equals 1. So now what I'm going to fill in is I'm going to put 4 in this x. I'm going to put 2 for the y, and then I'm going to put 25 for the a squared. And I'm solving for b squared. So let's fill that in. So x is 4 from the order pair 4, 2. And then I don't know b squared. Y is 2. So I'm going to square 2. And then a squared was 25. So now let me square those terms. So the purple becomes 16 over b squared. 2 squared is 4. And then I had already squared the 5 and made it 25. All right, so now I need to solve for b squared. So I need to isolate the variable. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 4 over 25 from both sides. So this is gone. So now I'm left with 16 over b squared. Now in order to subtract this right here, I'm going to change my whole number 1 and make it 25 over 25. And then I could subtract the 4 over 25, and this gives me 21 over 25. I'm going to just solve this as a proportion. So I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm going to do 21 times b squared, and then 16 times 25. So once I multiply diagonally, I get 21b squared equals 16 times 25 is 400. Going to divide both sides by 21. And b squared is equal to 400 over 21. Remember, we don't need to square root it. We need b squared. And I have a squared. So now let's put it in. Let's go back up here and fill this in. So I have x squared over b squared, which is 400 over 21. And then y squared over a squared, which was 25. Now, be able to recognize the answer this way, or another form of this would be 21x squared over 400 plus y squared over 25 equals 1. Now, let me show you how I changed this so it looks like this. So the math behind it is if I take this, really what this is saying is x squared divided by 400 over 21. And if I do keep, change, flip, x squared, keep it, change it to multiplication, flip that fraction upside down, and this is how it turns into 21x squared over 400. So be able to recognize both answers, because on an SAT, they may present it this way, or this way. So recognize both answers. So for number 8, I'm going to give myself a visual. This time my center is not going to be at 0, 0. So let's graph the vertices. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I have a vertice at 3, 3, and 3, negative 3. Here are my vertices. Now, I can either, if I've given myself the visual, I can see my center point is right here. It's going to be the order pair 3, 0. Now, if you don't give yourself the visual, I could also have done the midpoint. And your midpoint formula is adding the x's and divide by 2, and then adding the y's and divide by 2. And that gives you the order pair of the midpoint.
Are we have to use the midpoint formula on the test?
Either that or you're going to graph it and then find the midpoint, find the middle of the two vertices or the middle of the two focus points. So if I just do this, I'm adding 3 plus 3, divide by 2, and then 3 plus negative 3, divide by 2. This gives me 6 over 2, 0 over 2, and that's how I get the center point to be 3, 0, just by using the midpoint formula. So the center is always the midpoint of your two focus points or the midpoint of your two vertices. So the next thing they gave me is the minor axis length. And remember back on slide 3, I told you that the minor axis length was equal to 2 times A. So 2A equals 2, divide by 2, and, 2B, that's the major axis, is 2A. So 2B, so B is equal to 1. So B squared is also equal to 1. Now, I can go back to my visual here and get my length or my measurement for A just by counting how many spaces away my vertex is from that center. And I can see that it's 3 spaces away. So my A value is 3. So A squared is 9. Now, for this question, since the center is not at 0, 0, and you can see the two vertices are on top of each other, so this tells me my bigger number, my A squared, is going to be under Y. So the formula I'm filling in is x minus h squared. H is always with x. B squared, y minus k, over A squared equals 1. So now I'm going to fill in A squared with the 9. I'm going to fill in B squared with the 1. And then I'm going to fill in my center point. So I'm going to fill in the 3 for the H and then the 0 for the K. So let's fill it all in. So it'll be x minus 3 squared over B squared, which is 1, plus y minus k, which is 0, squared over A squared, which is 9, and then it's set equal to 1. Now, I'm going to get rid of the 1 and rid of the 0. So my final answer here, I don't need to write that blue 1, x minus 3 squared. I also can get rid of the y minus 0 and just make it y squared over 9 equals 1. So be able to recognize it simplified by getting rid of the 1's in the denominator. Get rid of the minus zeros. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to change it so it looks different than the next one. I'm going to change this focus point and make it 4, 0. So let's go ahead and graph what we are given. So I have a focus at 0, 0, and another focus at 4, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the foci, or the two focus points. Now, remember, your center is the midpoint of the two focus points or the midpoint of the two vertices. And in this case, I have 2 focus points. So if you've got a nice, neat visual, you could see that the middle, and it's got to be the equal number of spaces away. This is 2 spaces here, 2 spaces here. And remember the distance from the center to the focus, that's your C value. Another way would have been to calculate the midpoint using these 2 points. So 0 plus 4 divide by 2, 0 plus 0 divide by 2, 4 over 2, 0 over 2, 2, 0. This is your center point. And the C value, again, we saw it was 2 spaces away. So C squared is 4. Now they gave me that the major axis length is 8. So 2A equals 8, divide by 2, and A equals 4. So A squared is 16. So if you were to graph your vertices, you could see that they would have been they would have been 4 spaces away from that center. So they would have been shifted over a little bit. Could have added some little lines here. So my vertices would actually be right here and right here, because it says the major axis length is 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But again, think of it as 4 on this side, 4 on this side. So A is 4, A is 4 on this side. Now, I need to find my B squared. So I'm going to use C squared equals A squared minus B squared. I have C squared, it's 4. So I can plug that in. And then I have A squared at 16, and I don't know B squared. Subtract 16. Negative 12 equals negative B squared. Divide. 12 is equal to B squared. Now, you see how your two focus points and your two vertices were next to each other, side to side. So we know it's going to be horizontal. And again, our center was not at 0, 0. So we had to do the longer formula. So the x minus h squared over a squared, because it's horizontal, y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. So now I need to fill in my center, which was the order pair 2, 0. So this is my h and k. And then I'm going to fill in my a squared and my b squared. So my answer here is going to be x minus 2 squared over 16 plus y minus 0. So I'm just going to put y squared over 12. So whenever there's a 0, you could just put it in as either an x squared or y squared, wherever the 0 is located. And then one last example, similar to this one, but now notice in the focus, it's going to be vertical. So again, if you give yourself the visual, I've got a focus point at 0, 0, and then another one at 0, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my focus, these are my focus points. So again, you can either choose to do the midpoint to get the center using 0, 0 and 0, 8. So 0 plus 0 divide by 2, 0 plus 8 divide by 2, 0 over 2, 8 over 2, 0 comma 4. This is the center. So you could have also figured out that the C value, distance from center to focus, is got to be the same on both sides of that center, and it's going to be 4 spaces away. So my C is 4, so C squared is 16. Now they also gave me that the major axis length is equal to 16, so 2A equals 16. Divide by 2, and A equals 8. So A squared is 8 squared, 64. So again, my center was not at 0, 0. So again, I'm using the longer equation, x minus h squared, and it's going to be vertical. So the b squared's under the x, y minus k squared with a squared underneath because it's vertical. And now let's fill in hk, a squared, b squared. Now, I don't know b squared. I got to go back and do that before I can fill everything in. So c squared equals a squared minus b squared. C squared 16. A squared was 64. Subtract the 64. I get negative 48 equals negative b squared. Divide by negative 1. And 48 equals b squared. So I'm going to fill in 48 for my b squared. I'm going to fill in 64 for my a squared. And then my center is going to be the 0 for the h and the 4 for the k. So again, when I plug in x minus 0, this is just going to be an x squared. My b squared was 48. My k was 4. and my a squared was 64. And that is writing the equations of the ellipse.